Hello and welcome to the official Haters Euro 2024 Daily Show. I'm your host, Aaron Goldstein, and today I'm joined by Freddie Walker and Nina Hristova. A reminder that we are live every day throughout the tournament at 1 p.m, bringing you exclusive training clips, interviews, and reports from our team on the ground in Germany. We will get to England, but before we do, let's round up yesterday's action, which, candidly speaking, was pretty dull. Group C opened the day in Munich. Serbia's super sub, Luka Jovic, came off the bench to score a last gasp equaliser. Was that the limbs of the tournament we've had so far?
Yeah, it was definitely up there. It was pretty amazing to see. It was a good game, actually. It surprised me that game was as good as it was. But also the Croatia-Albania limbs was pretty special as well. Albania scoring in the 95th minute. So I'd maybe put that above the limbs yesterday.
Oh, really? You're going for those limbs as number two? Nina, what do you think?
No, I think it was pretty outstanding, especially because Serbia pretty much thought they'd won it and they were sort of holding on to that very last minute. And I mean, everyone loves a super sub score, a late winner. It's a great narrative. And I just think that, you know, him stealing it so late to grab that point was pretty amazing.
They seemed really weird, Slovenia, because I was watching the game with you, and Jan Oblak, he just kind of stood behind the line in his goal, expecting nothing to really happen.
Yeah, it looked like it took him by surprise, didn't it? Really, he was just caught off guard, and he couldn't dive, so he just had no chance of getting there. But yeah, it looked quite strange.
I tell you what, it would have been the limbs of the tournament had the goalkeeper scored it.
Yeah,
he comes up. That's the kind of thing that you dream of seeing in an international tournament. But we should touch upon the immense performance of Nina. You're going to have to say his name for me.
Jan Karničnik, yes, the fullback. He was insane. Obviously, got the goal as well, and he pretty much collected it from his own half. Did that absolutely brilliant run all the way to receive it at the far post, and he did his job defensively. I mean, as the stats show there. 3 clearances, 2 blocked shots. I mean, he was very involved offensively, defensively. I thought he did a pretty good job. He played the full 90 minutes, and I think he'll be rewarded with another start in their next game.
Yeah, SofaScore providing us with the stats as per usual. If you want to get all of your football stats, I highly recommend you download the app. 25 million other people have. So what are you doing if you haven't? Now, the big question, he's the right back. Yes. So we will touch on England, as I said, a bit later. Is he going to be up against Phil Foden in the next match?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. I think Nina probably knows more about him than me, but yeah, I think he'll probably be starting against Phil Foden, but maybe not Phil Foden.
Yeah, I mean, they could play Anthony Gordon. We've got so many different options. Do you think it'll be Foden?
I think it will be. Well, I mean, we know we're going to talk about him briefly. I think a lot of fans probably would like to see Gordon start on that left-hand side and perhaps get a chance there. It's obviously a debate whether Foden's role is perhaps better, more centrally, and I think we saw that against Denmark. But, I think it's going to be definitely Karničnik in that right-back role. So I think he'll give, if it is Foden or Gordon, a tough time. I think he's quite good at closing wingers down. So it'll be a tough job. But obviously the big question is who's going to start on that left-hand side.
Please do get your comments in because we do want to hear them, and we will touch on everything you ask us a little bit later. However, in the evening yesterday, we saw the reigning champions of Europe up against the Nations League champions. People forget about the Nations League. I think it's a nice little tournament. It was, though, another match that failed to really set the world alight. Haters Dan Bennett was in Gelsenkirchen.
From HaytersTV in Gelsenkirchen, which I may or may not have pronounced correctly. We've just seen Spain beat Italy 1-0, which suggests it was quite a tight game, but in truth, it really wasn't. Spain, very good value for their victory, dominant performance against quite a poor Italy side. Spain kept the ball really well, and it could have been 3 or 4, really, at least. Some missed chances from Pedri and Nico Williams. Stop this from being a heavy scoreline on the wrong side for the Italians. Italy tried to counter-attack Spain, but in truth they offered very little going forward. Only a couple of shots throughout the whole game, and based on what we've seen so far from Spain, you'd have to say they look like one of the favourites for the competition. Keep the ball really well. Got some very talented young players in Pedri and Lamine Yamal, as well as the experience of the likes of Rodri in midfield as well. So good signs for the Spanish, not so good signs for the Italians.
So good to finally see Dan on the show. He's been out in Germany for over a week and we haven't seen his face yet. The game's only goal yesterday was scored by Ricardo Calafiori, but it went into his own net. Well, unfortunately for him, it went into his own net. The Spaniards around the world were celebrating like crazy. Freddie, this is a different Spain team to what we're used to over the last few years. Are they doing enough to make themselves tournament favourites for you?
Yeah, they're definitely up there. To get 2 wins against Croatia and obviously Italy, the reigning champs, that definitely puts you up there as one of the favourites to win it. And they're playing like a completely different way to how they, you associate the Spanish team with the tiki-taka. Much more direct, going through the channels, putting balls into the box. So it's different, but it's a good Spanish team, and I'm enjoying watching them.
A player that I certainly don't resonate tiki-taka with is Chelsea's Marc Cucurella. But he was seemingly happy with the display, and he was in the mix zone at full time.
There are different teams. I think we try to do the same style because Spain always play the same style, but we are different teams. In the past, they do like amazing things. I think they have maybe one of the best teams in the world and in the history of Spain. But today, I think we play really good. We try to do our job. We are different players, but I think we have the same ambitions. So I think if we play at this level, we can do good things.
So, Nina, you're a host for Chelsea Fan TV. Were you surprised to see Marc Cucurella playing for Spain, one of the tournament favourites going in? As I said, champions of the Nations League. He hasn't been that good for Chelsea, has he?
I wasn't surprised, to answer your question, because I think the performances he has displayed in both games against Spain tell you exactly why he was selected, while he was on the plane, why he started. And I think, he's dropping some immense performances off the back of Chelsea's end of the season. He was actually really good, stepped up in the absence of Ben Chilwell. Levi Colwill spent the majority of his time as a left back, but that's not his role. So I think Cucurella really seized his opportunity, getting picked straight back into the lineup. And yeah, he really lived it up. And his acrobatic effort, if you remember in the first game, to keep the ball in, he's just so passionate about his country as well. I think that really shows he plays with a lot of passion. So yeah, Marc Cucurella, he's going to be a player to watch in Spain's team for sure.
Well, he's happy with the performance, but I don't understand why the interviewers are asking questions like that. I just want to know what shampoo he's using. That's all I care about.
The hair's part of the football as well.
Yeah, literally. Freddie, 2 games where the Italians have been somewhat disappointing. They did win the opening game, but it was 2-1 against Albania. You'd expect better. But what do you expect when you've got a failed West Ham striker leading the line?
Yeah, I mean, he obviously didn't do well at West Ham, Scamacca. And the 2 performances from Italy have been poor. Obviously, they scraped past Albania. But they probably will get through to the knockouts, but probably struggle down the line to win the trophy again. But Scamacca has had a good season. He's got 19 goals for Atalanta, 8 assists throughout the season. Was obviously key in their Europa League wins. So I wouldn't count him out yet.
Fair enough. Okay, well, I think we've touched enough on yesterday's football. Please do get your comments in because we will get round to them very, very, very soon. Today, hopefully, we have some crackers. The early kickoff sees Slovakia take on Ukraine, one side that shocked the world with a famous win over Belgium, and another side who shocked the world with an opening day performance that Derby's 07-08 team really would have been proud of. It was appalling. What do Ukraine need to do today, Nina?
Get the ball to Dovbyk for starters.
Dovbyk, I think SofaScore have helped us with all of his stats this season. Fantastic for Girona. Look at this. Yeah, 39 goals, 39 matches, 24 goals and 10 assists. Why is he such an important figure for the Ukraine national team, Nina?
I mean, he's been exceptional for Girona. I think it's no secret to anyone. Some of the stats that, as we can see, he's pulled up for club and hopefully now for his national team as well. I think that's what everyone's really hoping for. But, he was in the list of sort of players to watch out for in this tournament as well. And he's yet to obviously unleash all his talent, I think, too. But, you look at how many clinical strikers there are. We look at clubs and how many there are in the transfer market at the moment. It's very scarce. And these are the players that clubs will be looking out for, potentially, a move away from Girona. He could potentially get a big club move, absolutely. And if he produces, if he scores, if he can be prolific, I think they are going to particularly be counting on him to get them through.
Well, one thing you just said there is he's a player that's unleashed his talents for club, but not country. There is a player playing for Ukraine that hasn't unleashed his talents for club or country. Mikhailo Mudryk, opinions?
It's a tough one. I think he's not had the start to Chelsea that he's envisioned. I think he is, as you say, a young player. He's very raw. And I think that's the key word there, that because Chelsea spent so much money on him, he came with these really big expectations and we expected him to immediately sort of make an impact, but that's not quite been the case. And I think with Mudryk, it's very hot and cold. You don't know what you're quite getting. Although I do think that you mentioned the Ukraine game and that he was a bit disappointing. I think he actually did try to get involved. He tried tried to sort of what he
Yes,
does
he
very
tried.
well. He tries, and that's the thing. He does try, because I thought, he had a few crosses. Someone couldn't quite get onto the end of those, but he does really try. I think pace is one of his biggest strengths. I think you can count on him. He's quick. He can definitely outpace whoever's marking him there. But I think it should be better. I think there's a lot more that fans will certainly be expecting from Madrid at this tournament.
I know the Haters team are answering comments in the chat, but Freddie, anything you wanted to bring up in particular? Any good comments that are coming through?
So we had one comment from Chris 1990 that he said, I said the other day on your live stream, England wouldn't win another game in this group, that they would draw the last two due to negative tactics and not being good whilst being pressed, one down, one to go. So Chris 1990 is not backing England to get another win in the Euros. Aidan Dupe said, watching from Melbourne, Australia, it's coming home.
Mate,
More confident.
great that you're watching.
Yeah,
Sorry about my Aussie accent, but I'm giving it a go.
He's more confident than I am that England are going to win this tournament, that's for sure.
We will get on to England very soon, but we do have to touch on everything else. At 5 o'clock, Poland take on Austria in a battle of the teams with red flags. Probably there are other ways of describing that game, but that's how I like it. Now, in the first game, we didn't see any of Robert Lewandowski, but Poland have another star, Napoli's Piotr Zielinski. Nina, any opinions on him?
Yeah, I think he's impressed as well, stepping in for the captain that I think Poland so would have missed. And I think that was the big question, that they really wanted to see exactly what he can do in Lewandowski's absence. And, the stats don't lie there. You can see in 7 World Cup matches, he's had 5 Euro matches now, he scored 1 goal, 2 assists. So, still much more to expect, but what more could you ask for when he's come into step for the the big giant that Lewandowski is at these tournaments? And he got his assist for Buxa's goal, and I think we can see some more great things from him. There are obviously talks about him leaving Napoli. Potentially a move to Inter Milan is likely, and he will leave on a free agent. He's 30 now, so it's a question of how much more kind of talent and what he's got up his sleeve. But I think Poland can really count on him for this tournament. Experience will be important.
Freddie, it's a cliche, but midfield's where the game's won, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at the best teams through history, they always have a very, very strong midfield. I think there's big issues surrounding England right now with that kind of midfield debate and Trent being in the middle, and how do they fix that? But also in this game, it's going to be a midfield battle for Austria. I think that's probably their strongest part of their team. With
Who have they got?
Konrad Lehmer, Baumgartner, Sabitzer. So names that we've heard before. Baumgartner has a bit of making up to do because he missed that chance against France, which was very frustrating for England fans, because could have sent France down a different route potentially. But I think it will be an interesting midfield battle in this game.
Marcel Sabitzer, Manchester United legend. And hang on, before I go on to England, score predictions, please, for that.
Oh, it's a tough one, because I think both teams really need to come out here and build on defeat. I think Poland potentially, I'd lean more towards them for a win. I think Austria are favourites, or have been put on the tag as dark horses a little bit by a few people. Though I do think Poland have a bit more experience, a few more players that could potentially turn up. I'd lean more towards a 2-1 Poland, I think.
Well, I think it obviously depends somewhat on if Lewandowski's fit. But I'm actually going to go for Austria 2-1. I think they might just get that
with opposing battle. Opinions. We
shall see.
Before we do get on to England, today's key match sees France take on the Netherlands. The big question, of course, is will Kylian Mbappe play? We did see him in training last night. Well, yes. Freddie, if I broke your nose right now, would you come back on tomorrow?
Yeah, I think I'd be here. I'd be here. Anything for the HaytersTV Daily Euro show.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. And I love the cause. I love the dedication. Would you go green with the whole Haters branding? Like
100%. I like that mask. It looks good. It's going to be interesting seeing Mbappe in that. I mean, you do get some pretty iconic moments of players in masks. So maybe Mbappe will add to that.
Well, I was going to say, people forget how good this France team is, Mbappe aside. If Mbappe plays, obviously they're a better team, but even if he doesn't, they've got some crazy, crazy talented players. One player that goes under the radar is the player of the tournament from Euro 2016, the top scorer from 2016, Antoine Griezmann. SofaScore have helped us with all of his stats when he's playing for France at international competitions. 31 matches, 11 goals, 7 assists. You do know what? His big chance conversion isn't fantastic, but as I always like to say, you look at Romelu Lukaku, he's got 85 goals for the national team, and his chance conversion must be in the 0.03%. So Antoine Griezmann is clearly doing something right. 2.3 shots a game, 9 big chances created, and a SofaScore average rating of 7.46. If you're in the green on a SofaScore rating, you're doing something right. Nina, how good is Antoine Griezmann, and why don't people give him enough credit?
I think he's superb. I think you're right there that he perhaps doesn't get enough credit for what he does. I think a lot of the work that he does as well is often unnoticed because he's such an intelligent footballer. You know, he has a great vision with what he does on and off the ball. And I think, again, that often goes unnoticed because people always kind of look at the numbers perhaps and those other things. But he is a very talented player. He's obviously experienced, and I think he's going to be an important player. It's obviously tough. I mean, France have insane squad depth. You know, you have so many superstars that want a place in the team, but I think he'd be very important for them.
Freddie, we've spoken about how good the Netherlands defense is. Okay, who is the big point that France need to worry for today? Is it Virgil van Dijk? But Nathan Ake came up out of nowhere playing ridiculous football in the last game. Yeah,
I mean, their defense is obviously very, very strong, but I'd also say Cody Gakpo has a great record at these tournaments. He could cause trouble in the other direction. He's scored in his last 4 major tournament group stage games. So he's definitely a man that could be on the score sheet again today.
I'd love to see Mickey van der Ven play for the Netherlands today if Mbappe is playing, because I want to see those two in a foot race, Mbappe versus Van der Ven. Who do you boys think? Who do you guys think? Sorry, I'm used to not having a girl on the panel. That's the kind of thing you don't want to happen live. Who's winning in a race, Van der Ven or Kylian Mbappe?
I'm going for Kylian.
Mbappe, he's too quick.
Yeah. Even with the mask slowing him down, getting him in his...
He's a superhero now. He's not going to be slower.
True. Very true. France, Netherlands score predictions?
That's tough. I edge over France. I think they have, after they didn't light it up in the opening game, I think they've got a real point to prove here.
Me and Nina are agreeing on this one. I'm going to go for 2-0 France.
Ooh.
On to England and a match to remember if you are a fan of boring football matches. Jerry Cox was out in Frankfurt.
Jerry Cox reporting from Frankfurt here. Massively disappointing game, really. England won, Denmark won. They were ahead, Harry Kane scored, but then they made a terrible mistake, let in Morten Hulmand, and Denmark got the equaliser. But it wasn't just that, it was the performance. England didn't look right, they got ragged. He made big substitutions. He took off Kane, Saka, Foden, Alexander-Arnold. I think we can say that experiment has now failed. And even Gareth said afterwards he thinks that experiment has failed. So where do they go from here? They could have topped the group and qualified already for the knockout stages if they'd won today. But now they've got it all to do against Slovenia on Tuesday. They've got to win that game, obviously. Otherwise, they could end up in third in the group. They should win, but they've got to be better than this.
Sorry, I've just remembered that game. It was painful. Can you guys sum up that England performance for me?
It was poor. Very poor.
Very, very disappointing. The way that they just sat back and went into their shell after the goal. I mean, I'd say the first 15, 20 were pretty good. They came out and it was very similar to the first game against Serbia where you're impressed with them. And then they get the goal and then suddenly they're awful.
Why do England do that? Have you any reason for it, Nina?
I have no idea. I mean, it was Dyer, and that's being nice. Just slow,
Dyer plays for Bayern
lethargic, and oh gosh, no. And yeah, just playing with the lack of intent, misplacing passes, losing possession so easily, far too easily. I don't really know. It's like almost a pattern that we score, and why do we feel the need with such a talented, unbelievably talented squad to sit back on a 1-0 lead when this squad can do so many wonders? There's so much attacking prowess in this team. The last thing you should be doing is sitting back after a 1-0 lead.
And it sounds like Gareth Southgate has succumbed to the fact that the Trent in midfield experiment hasn't worked.
Yeah,
Bravo.
it definitely hasn't worked. And I think he's got something to figure out there for the next game to see where he goes with that.
Yeah, okay. We'll come back to that in a minute because we did hear from John Stones. He's probably more interesting to hear from than me. Here's what he had to say after the game.
The boys not happy in the changing room?
In certain aspects, yeah, definitely. It's. I think we all know that we could have played better. We could have used the ball more, created more chances. But again, we played against Denmark a few times now, and they're a great team. They've got great players, and they made it difficult today with a back five. I think. I just said to someone in the changing room, look, they've shown us quite a lot of respect there, and played a back five, made it really difficult for us.
So Stones there is saying that they showed a bit of too much respect, Denmark, playing 5 at the back. In my opinion, England have a good enough squad that if they played 10 at the back, England should still be able to win. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I don't really know whether that's actually showing England too much respect or just showing that they know how to play against England and stop them from getting goals, because this England attack looks really dry so far in the Euros. I'm not entirely sure what the plan is. They're not being able to use Saka to his full potential. They're not using Foden to his full potential. Bellingham was poor yesterday. Harry Kane is hardly touching the ball, even though he did get the goal yesterday. And yeah, it's not looking great so far.
On the flip side, Nina, did England show Denmark too much respect?
I mean, you'd think so, because I mean, it just wasn't quite right. You know, like you say, we had so many talented players up front, and we didn't quite see those runs in behind. We didn't quite see those, ideas to unlock their defense at all. It was very much backwards passing, recycling attacks constantly, and it's just not what you want to see against Denmark.
Before we touch on any comments, Freddie, which I'll come back to you in a second, a reminder to download SofaScore, the best app around if you are a fan of football. Gives you stats, gives you everything you really need if you're a casual or a football nerd. I use it, and so you should too. Freddie, any comments?
We have a few in the comments. So we have NI saying Nina really knows her stuff. So big shout out to Nina right there.
Is the NI Nina? I don't know.
It's actually me just typing that comment for myself.
And Ota said, if you asked me just after the New Year, based on form, I would have said for sure that it was us. Not so sure now. England don't look with it, and Germany look revitalised and also beat France twice this year. So that's in terms of England not winning the Euros and Germany now being the favourites.
Yeah, I think Germany have been my favourites from day one. We haven't had you on yet, Nina. Who's your favourite?
I think Germany have certainly been the most impressive. It's hard not to be impressed, but I also do take quite a liking into Portugal as well, even though they didn't have quite the flying start and perhaps not the most convincing win. I think Portugal are about to do some wonders in this tournament.
That Denmark goal yesterday, it was a proper strike. Pickford can't do anything about that. We were in agreement there.
Oh, yeah.
No, yeah, it was an absolute scream. And I actually saw a stat that 13 goals have been scored outside of the box so far in this Euros, accounting for 28.3% of the goals. So there's been quite a lot of screamers so far in this tournament.
We love our stats on the Haters Daily Euro show. We did hear from Jordan Pickford at full time.
And we recovered well. We got the training pitch, and we know we've got more levels to come, and we'll be right. Thanks.
Mike, that was really insightful. So much to hear. He says we've got more levels to come. Hopefully, it's not levels of rubbish. Do you think England have a trick up their sleeve for the final group game? Are they going to change it up, or do you think Gareth Southgate will stick to his guns and keep it the same way?
He definitely needs to change it up in some way. I'd like to see some of those players that he's taken out there get some minutes. I'd like to see Cole Palmer. I'm sure Nina would have more to say on Cole Palmer not getting any minutes. Anthony Gordon, I'd like to see. So maybe Kobe Mainu, Adam Wharton. The midfield experiment needs to change, and we need to switch that up.
Do you think he'll change it, or do you think he'll stick it the same with different players?
If he doesn't change it, then we're completely set up to fail in this tournament, because if that's no indication with everything that went wrong yesterday that something really needs to change either in the system or the squad selection, then we are quite doomed, I mean, to say the least, because like Freddie said, we've got so many unbelievably talented players that Gareth Southgate selected, by the way. I don't see why when he's got those players at his disposal, he won't use them. I think he needs to switch it up, and he needs to change the lineup a little bit. I think he could see that with Foden, especially, and I'm sure we'll touch on him when he had a little bit more freedom there centrally. I think Foden performed a little bit better than he did in the first game. Some might say he was still a bit underwhelming, but I think he had a lot more freedom to shoot outside the box, from the left, from the right as well. But he absolutely must change it. I mean, Trent, like you said earlier, it didn't work. You tried it once, tried it twice. Absolutely must change for Slovenia.
So, I mean, the first thing that we think of when we think about Chelsea players that deserve more minutes would be Cole Palmer. But Conor Gallagher, does he slot into that team ahead of Trent for the next match, in your opinion?
See, the thing with Conor Gallagher is I thought, okay, great, you're subbing him on, but he shouldn't have been the first player on, in my opinion, because I think the game really needed changing and switching up, absolutely. And obviously Trent didn't work, but Conor Gallagher can cause you trouble. I mean, he got a yellow card inside, 6 minutes of being brought on?
It was a harsh yellow.
It was
a harsh yellow, but then again, he was making some tough decisions and challenges after, which I didn't quite think, should have been the case. But, there's other players here that are in the conversation. It's not quite about Conor Gallagher here.
I don't know if everyone noticed as well. The pitches have been so weird at this Euros.
Yeah,
we now go
5.
live to our groundsman expert. Joking, kidding. We don't have a groundsman expert. But why is that? Like, obviously, we have no idea, but it's been noticeable.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Carl Walker, got his legs stuck.
Yeah.
Germans, do better. We're not happy. There's no denying it wasn't a good performance, but does that give the England fans the right to boo the team, Freddie?
Ooh, I think somewhat, yeah. They are putting out good results, I guess, and putting everything into the game. So it's not through lack of trying. But I can understand their frustration. The performances are so boring to watch. I mean, watching England now is almost a chore because it really is dull. So I kind of get the idea that they want to get a bit more entertainment out of the games.
What do you think, Nina?
I disagree. I think we can criticise absolutely. And ultimately, we pin a lot of blame on Gareth Southgate. But, some of the players should also take blame. Absolutely. So I agree on that behalf. And we can definitely criticise some of the decisions. But I don't agree with booing players. And I think, now more than ever at this Euros, especially, we need to get behind our England players. A lot of them are still young. Now, some of them have had more international experience at, these European stages. But we all remember Euro 2020 in the final. And I think particularly because of that reason, we just now need to be behind them. I just, don't agree with booing.
I think, the definition of a fan is somebody who supports, someone who gets behind their team, and booing is completely not on. On the flip side, though, the England fans are spending a lot of money to get out to Germany, and they're seeing pretty boring football. You're not really getting your money's worth for your tickets. Anyway, we did see a familiar face yesterday in Kasper Schmeichel. He was asked at the last Euros about England. He's like, "Oh, has football ever been home anyway?" Well, he wasn't surprised that Denmark managed to get a result against England. We heard from him after the match.
Surprised that you did so well against England, or were you confident you could get a result?
I think when you look at the games that we've played against England recently, we've always had tight games. It's always been small, fine margins that have decided the game, and I think we played a decent game today. I'm very proud of the attitude and the fight and the endeavour. We limited them to not a lot of chances, so proud of the team.
Lots of people in England complain about the England performance, but is that a little bit of a lack of respect towards Denmark, who are a really good side in themselves? Were they good yesterday, Nina?
I think progressively after, they got their equaliser, I think a lot of energy was injected into their game. And I actually thought this is where they punish us now. They've really identified the weaknesses in this England team where they've sat back. They've allowed all these spaces, they keep losing possession in midfield. And I think Denmark were exactly pouncing on those. Every time we lost the ball, they were on it and they were trying to play through the middle, get it up, further into the box. And I think they had some opportunities where they could have scored. And we're talking about a different game. We're talking about defeat. And I thought Denmark were dangerous even before the game. I didn't want to be complacent and think this would have been an easy win for England at all, but I think we allowed them to do that more than anything. No disrespect, they're a great team, but I think England actually enabled them to cause more danger.
I don't want to brag too much, but I did say it was going to be 1-1 yesterday.
Well done.
Thank you. Now, there was a quote that's gone around a little bit from Gareth Southgate, and we do have it here. He believes
been trying to find a solution in midfield for 7 or 8 years. If we hadn't had Declan Rice for the last few years, I don't know where we'd have been. Unfortunately, Calvin wasn't a possible for us for this tournament. Hendo the same. So we're trying to find something different, and some of that has worked, some of that hasn't worked so well. But over the years, that's been a consistent problem we've tried to find the best way of solving, and we've got to do that in the coming weeks as well.
Okay, it's not my job to just sit here and stroke Gareth Southgate's ego and say he's the best person ever. But before you ridicule him, I'm going to step in here and show you just how important Calvin Phillips was for England at the last Euros. got to the final. We were unlucky to lose it. SofaScore have helped us with all of his stats, which are coming up on the screen right now. He played every single match for England at the last Euros, playing every minute, pretty much 95 minutes per game on average. He got his 1 assist, but you know what? Going forward, those aren't really where he's going to get his numbers. So he was lucky to get that. He got the assist on the opening game against Croatia, if I remember correctly. Very high accurate passing percentage, wins a good amount of duels. He's everywhere. Look at his heat map. A very solid, about getting an average score of around about 7 on SofaScore. He was missed. You think about that England team, and they got to the final where people didn't really expect them to, and he was one of the key men. Yes, he made a mistake going to Manchester City, and yes, he wasn't great at West Ham. But Gareth Southgate has a point that in his own system, Calvin Phillips works. We have proof of that because we got to the final of the last Euros with him in midfield. Now I'm going to shut up and you guys can nibble.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree that Calvin Phillips is essential to this team anymore. He was at the last Euros, but it's been a long time, and he's had that whole time to figure out who can replace him, what would work best in midfield. And we've gone in with something that we haven't actually really played that much with Trent in centre mid. So he's had time to figure it out. And I think he should have experimented with Wharton earlier. Mainu, he has experimented a little bit with Mainu. And maybe we'll see that barely, but he's had a few minutes for England. So yeah, I wouldn't say that Calvin Phillips is that essential.
Nina?
I absolutely agree with Freddie. I mean, Southgate, stop living in the past. We are here in the present day, and it's no time to be reminiscent about the past. You know, we will always be grateful for Calvin Phillips and his efforts for England. But like Freddie mentioned, we have so much talent that, you know, really lived it up and lit up the Premier League this season. And again, like I mentioned earlier, Southgate selected them. And if you won't give them a chance, then what's the point? It's not like you've tried it and it's failed. And then you've thought about Calvin Phillips in the past and players that we've had, you know, that worked under that system. So I think exactly what he needs to do against Slovenia is play, you know, perhaps Mainu, more experience. Yes, Wharton, I agree, has only had, you know, a few good games under Glasner towards the end of Crystal Palace's season. But, you know, Mainu's been fantastic for Manchester United equally, and he really should get a chance, right? That's what it is. If us fans are calling for these experiments that, you know, you don't know they're going to work, but we want to see it on the pitch because ultimately we'll get the non-boring football, hopefully, that you talk about there. So yeah, it's just almost taking a risk. Do it, Southgate. All of us want you to do it, so please do it yourself.
The substitutions yesterday, were they a little bit surprising? I couldn't believe it that he actually took off that front three.
Yeah, I was surprised he took off Saka when he did, because he seemed to be the only player that was actually threatening to do something. And yeah, obviously you take off Kane, who's England's all-time goal scorer. Ollie Watkins really didn't come on and do anything. So it didn't look particularly good. Just on the last point, we've had a comment from George saying no natural replacement from Calvin Phillips. Southgate is having us on. We've had Mike Thomas say, okay, team, Gareth Southgate is far too concerned defensively. If you look at the stats on the Euro 2024 app, England have performed defensively pretty well. We are top for ball recoveries, etc. Germany are actually first for most attempts at goal, and England are way down the list.
I'm just going to quickly stop you, Mike Thomas there. You're using the wrong app. You should be using SofaScore, which tells you far more detailed statistics than whatever Euro 2024 are giving you. Look, the thing, I'm just going to quickly protect Gareth Southgate once again, as I have found myself doing time and time again on the show. It's, if you do not concede, you're not going to lose. So time and time again, we've seen England play really well defensively, and all you then need is that one goal moving forward. And yeah, he needs to figure out the best way to get those goals. And he hasn't got that just yet. But before Gareth Southgate came in, it was dire. It was really, really, really bad for England. World Cup semi-final 2018. We got to the World Cup quarterfinal in Qatar. Euro 2020 final. He's done a good job, and I won't hear it any other way. The football may not have been Pep Guardiola, Mikel Arteta-esque. Love putting Mikel Arteta in that same bracket, but that's where it is. Earlier in the day, Rodrigo had the chance to speak to Timmy Elsnick about how they were feeling ahead of playing England.
Him now, I'm gonna care about him when we play them, and we're gonna have to run after him. Obviously, he's an amazing player. He's having one of the best seasons for a midfielder. If he's still a midfielder, he's everywhere now. So yeah, he's amazing player, always dangerous, looking to get on the ball, looking to score, to affect the game. And if a team is capable of stopping him, I think you do a lot to stop England at the moment. But yeah, Jude in England is still far away.
I love that straight away. Jude Bellingham, who's that? Who cares? Look, I'm hardly filled with confidence going into the final game. Do you think England will turn it? I've asked you if you think Gareth Southgate will change it up, but on paper, we're a better team than them. We should win.
100%. I mean, it'll be interesting. Now, Jerry mentioned it in his clip, saying that England could now finish third in the group after having the chance to confirm first place yesterday. So it's not looking great right now, but I'm sure they'll beat Slovenia. They really should. Yeah.
Let's get Group C up on the screen so we can take a look through how everything is and what can come next. Nina, England are top with 4 points. Serbia are bottom with just the 1. England probably, realistically, will win the group here. Unless Denmark get a really good result and England draw. What does this mean? Who could England face in the next round?
Right, so hopefully, as you say, England do top the group. Otherwise, it can get a little bit nastier than we would perhaps like and prefer moving forward. So if England do top the group, then they will face a third place team from either Group D, E or F. So that is likely at the moment with how things are looking in the groups. Could be Poland or Austria, depending, but those are most likely the teams there. Either Czech Republic or perhaps Georgia, because again, just don't see how... Portugal and Turkey perhaps don't make it through with the performances that they have displayed recently, or it could be something like Group E, which at the moment is looking unlikely to be, well, with how the ranks are at the moment, you've got Belgium and Ukraine at the bottom, 3 and 3rd and 4th, which I don't see coming myself. So given that they turn it around and they win their games, it could be the Romania, Slovakia. But if that doesn't happen, we could face Germany if we do finish second in that group. And, why have it hard when you can have it easier? And England will be at fault for that ultimately if we do, draw Germany next, because yes, we could face them further down the line. And I'm all for you got to beat the good teams to get further down the line. But you don't need to invite that pressure so early on when you could literally win your group, as we have the talent and the ability to do, and then just have a much better route down to hopefully the end of 8 stages of the tournament.
Okay, well, it's time to go watch some football that hopefully won't make you want to gouge your eyes out. We get to see Mykhailo Mudryk, Nina. I'm sure you'll like that. It's been so great having you on the show today. We will see you once again tomorrow at 1 o'clock.